Jeremy!
Woo! Hi there.
Yeah. Saturdays I'm moving out of my home. A couple of weeks ago, my mother and I watched Real Steel, the movie. As I was watching the movie, I realized something. The guy's son's behavior and attitude for going after his visions and dreams really caught my attention. For even when all the odds were stacked against him, he never gave up. When he barely won, he tried harder to double up the game. There was no doubt in my mind that this was a relentless guy pursuing after his vision he believed in. Let's talk about Abraham for a minute. Abraham was an example of being relentless. He was a man relentless in his love for the one and only Lord. In Genesis 22, verse 2, God called upon Abraham and instructed him to take his one and only son to the land of Moriah and sacrifice him as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, which the Lord would show him. Abraham even chopped wood for a burnt offering of his son, as instructed by the Lord. As an obedient servant, Abraham was willing to sacrifice his son to please the Lord. Even when Abraham's faith was being tested by God, he was relentless to obey the Lord at whatever cost. That he did not even question God, regardless how crazy the idea of sacrificing his own son sounded. He was relentless to obey God. Most people today, if God asked them to take their only child, whom they love to death, and sacrifice them as an offering, they wouldn't comply with God's command, for they wouldn't believe God would ask them to do such a thing. However, our love for God and doing His will must be a relentless one, regardless of the price. When I was just 2 years old, my dad left my mother for another woman and never called or came back, not even to see me. But I always wanted to see my father. My dream and vision was to have a father and son relationship with my dad, like the other kids had. And I used to pray for my dream to become a reality. So I would call my dad to see how he was doing, to tell him I loved him, and we'll see what was happening in his life. Even if he did not want to answer my calls or call me back, I was relentless to have a relationship with my dad and building a relationship with my dad. And I was not willing to give up my dream because I used to hear a voice tell me to call my dad, tell him how much I love him, and to ask him how his day was. When I was 9 years old, after 7 years without seeing my father, he came to Florida. God restored my parents' love and marriage, and I got to enjoy 3 wonderful years with my father. Yes, just 3 years. For my father did the same thing to my mother and once again left us. Even though my father is not in our lives anymore, I thank God for the 3 wonderful years I spent with both my parents together. And I don't lose faith that someday, somehow, I will be able to spend good times with my dad again. Today, I realized that the voice telling me to call my dad, tell him how much I love him, was the voice of God. And that having him for a little while was God answering my prayers. Because in Psalms 27, verse 10 says, "For my father and my mother have forsaken me, but the Lord will take me in." Even though I don't have my earthly father to talk to or spend time with when I'm going through a hard time, I have my heavenly Father that will always be there for me when I need someone to talk to, lead me, guide me, and love me forever. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness. It says in Psalms 23, verse 3, "For even when I am drowning, I will keep my faith in the one. He will never let me drown." Life is just a test. We will always face a test. So I have a question for you. Are you relentless after the one?